What's up, YouTube? Bay Area Baller back again. We got an exciting episode of 49ers fired up, ready for you. Stay tuned. Let's get my boy on here. Johnny, what's going on?
What's up, buddy? How we doing?
Hey, I'm feeling good. Thanks for coming on again. You know, I like this spot for the podcast because we're right in between preseason games, right? We just watched this game versus the Vikings, and they got a quick turnaround this week. They're playing on Thursday in 2 days. So we got live action.
Oh, dude, it's gonna be rapid fire. And then before you know, I think on Wednesday it's when they had to cut the roster down to 53. So there's going to be a lot going on over the next week. I'm pretty excited to see who's actually going to make this team, who's not. Turns out there's a couple undrafted guys who've made some noise. So we're going to talk about that. And this roster might be surprisingly different because I don't think there's that many undrafted and drafted guys that we expected to be playing this much. And it's going to be a few of them.
No doubt. Yeah, cut season's upon us. And before we get into the heated headlines, there were a couple cuts made today. And one of them, Tanner Hudson, I thought he looked pretty good in the preseason. I thought he had an outside shot potentially at making this roster, but no, he gets cut today. And the other guy, Jeremiah Gamel, a linebacker, he's also cut. So, I mean, we know what time of the year it is.
Yeah, Hudson was I don't know if that's surprising. I think they may have done the veteran solid, just kind of let him go a little early, see if he can get picked up by another roster before the 53 cut down. It wouldn't surprise me at all. He's back on this team in the practice squad, though. Seems like him and Brock Purdy kind of developed a nice little rapport there. And he's got pretty good hands and not a bad blocker from what we've heard in camp. So I think he's a guy you might see his name pop back up again.
Yeah. Let's jump right into the heated headlines.
The heated headlines.
Johnny, Javon Kinlaw looked like a monster versus the Vikings. And that got me super juiced because he's a guy who I wanted to temper my expectations on. You know, I didn't want to come in with these super high hopes. We know he's had the lingering knee injury, but he came out. He performed well in this preseason game. I thought Shanahan kept him out there quite a bit. After he got that first sack, I was like, all right, hey, we saw enough. Let's get him back in. But Shanahan kept him out there, and he got another pressure. So just has me wondering. I was already thinking this defense was going to be, top 3, top 5. But if we get Javon Kinlaw we're talking a top 15 pick, Johnny. So if this guy can live up to that and he's a star on the interior, it's going to do some big things.
The thing is, this year, I don't think he even needs to live up to that. I think he just needs to be a guy who can play on first and second down for this defense to be good, right? I mean, I think that's the bigger issue. I think we talked about this in one of the first episodes we did of this was how are the 49ers going to stop the run in the interior defensive line this year, right? I think that was their biggest concern on defense moving forward other than the other safety position, right? And Kinlaw checking boxes, right? He's checking boxes. He's not missing practice. He's practicing every day. He's getting one-on-one reps. He's playing team drills. And now you see him come out in a preseason game where he looked fresh. He looked good. Now, I don't think he's going to play a whole lot on Thursday just because I think Kyle had alluded to that a little bit, saying like he's probably not going to be dressed because they were already in practice mode. Let him kind of get out there, and then he's going to call it quits. So if we don't see him, I don't think that's any concern or anything. I think that's by design. And the Niners have done a good job sticking to the injury plans for their players. But talk about a 180 when you talk about Kinlaw looking like he's going to be an impact starter on this team versus McGlinchey, who it's very concerning about what's going on with him. If you're a Niner fan and you feel comfortable what's going on at right tackle, I think you need to take a second look at that. I feel a lot better. I feel a lot better about Kinlaw playing 17 games this year, getting through, playing maybe 65% of the snaps versus McGlinchey being the starting right tackle for most of the season. Yeah, he responded very well. It was impressive. The Niners, it hurt last year, but damn, they did the right thing by the player. And I think sometimes teams don't always do that. So you got to kind of applaud them for that. They made sure they got him cleaned up, got him healthy. That doesn't always happen in professional sports, all right? I think we've seen enough examples of that And I think that's really a great thing. And hopefully we can get 2 good years out of Kinlaw while he's still on this rookie deal.
I'm loving what Kinlaw is going to bring. And what I'm expecting, Johnny, is him to push the pocket, right? I want to line him up over whichever guard, whether it's the opposing team's left guard or right guard, whoever's more susceptible to getting beat by power. I want to put Kinlaw over that guy and play the matchup game where he can really push the pocket, because that's going to open the door even wider for Nick Bosa to come in when, quarterback's got to move back. You're stepping right into Bosa territory.
But you think about offensive line play, too. I mean, let's just be honest. If you're an offensive coordinator scheming for the 49ers, how do you slow down Nick Bosa? Well, you're going to double him at some point, right? You're going to use the tight end, the tackle, or the running back in some kind of chipping on Bosa to try and give the tackle a better chance. Then you have Eric Armstead, right? The center is probably going to be more often than not shading to the Eric Armstead side of the front, right? So that leaves Ebukam, Drake Jackson, Toure, and Kinlaw and Menahue with single blocks, right? So that's that was one of the big reasons why Eric Armstead had the massive breakout year he had. He got single blocked a ton back in 2019 because everyone was shading Buckner and Bosa. So because of that, you might get a nice little uptick in production. But again, I'm not betting on him playing 80% of the snaps. I think 60 to 65. I think we see him a lot on first and second down. Get him off the field on some third downs. Get a faster guy in there. But I mean, for Niner fans, this is good news, at least for the defense.
It is. And part of the reason why I was picking Kevin Givens to have this breakout season is because there was some uncertainty with Kinlaw. But hey, I'm enthused about it, and I love how Kinlaw looked. And the way he got the sack, Johnny, it was like off quickness.
It was impressive. Yeah.
He beat him with speed. He attacked the offensive lineman's outside shoulder, stuck his foot in the ground, and cut back inside, got himself in a good leverage position, and then sacked Kellen Mond. I mean,
He's a physical nightmare. I mean, he's 6'5", thick at 293 now, like 295, whatever he's weighing. Doesn't really matter. Like, I don't care if he's not 320 anymore. There's still not too many guards who can handle that sort of penetration. And his lifting numbers, the combine, were very high. So, I mean, this is a guy who's incredibly strong and can move very well at his size. So, anything they get from Kinlaw is a plus, just because simple fact, losing DJ Jones is a big loss. And if they get this Kinlaw injury figured out, which it looks like they have, it could be a big boost to the 49ers defense, because Kinlaw has better potential than DJ Jones. He's a bigger physical freak. And I mean that in a very positive way. I know some people take that the wrong way. It's positive.
Yeah. Good. Why don't we go to topic number 2? And it's this rookie running back, Jordan Mason. The kid looks legit. Johnny, what have you seen from him in the preseason? He is PFF's highest graded running back through 2 weeks of the preseason. So what are you seeing from him? And is he about to steal somebody's job?
See, here's the hard part. They're only going to keep 4 running backs in juice, right? So there's 5 spots. So you got to kind of play the math game. Right off the bat, Elijah Mitchell's making team. Doesn't matter. Number 2, Ty Davis Price. They just drafted him. He's not getting cut. Regardless of what anyone wants to think, he's going to be the guy who's going to pound his head against the wall when they need to burn out some clock and just take away some of those interior carries.
I mean, he had a phenomenal run against the Vikings too.
He had a couple.
He stiff-armed a defensive tackle and then just ran over. I think it was a linebacker or a safety. Just ran him over.
Yeah, so we'll talk about the running styles too, because I want to get into the reason why I think Mason's got a chance to make this team. And this is an important one, but definitely running style is a big one. But the other thing is that Jeff Wilson seems like he's back on track, right? Kyle has said as much. I would not expect him getting cut. I think he's definitely on this roster because he also can catch the football when he's healthy. I mean, I think we forget in 2019, he had 2 or 3 really big catches. One of them won them a football game. It was almost a walk-off touchdown. So that's one thing. So you got 3 guys competing for one spot in my book, and I think this is pretty fair. Jermichael Hasty, you have Jordan Mason, and Trey Sermon. And this is sort of, this is what we're going to get into is Mr. Trey, is Trey Sermon going to make this team? And I am starting to feel like we're going to get to another 3rd-round pick from the 2021 draft later, but I don't think he's going to make this team. I think The hard part with Trey Sermon is that he's a rhythm running back. We've heard it many a times, and that's when we saw him play really good at Ohio State and Oklahoma. There's a lot of tape on him ripping off big runs, but they're later in games. He likes to kind of dance around the holes a little bit. He doesn't quite hit it, and that's not Kyle Shanahan's style. If you go back to Alfred Morris, Arian Foster, why did they succeed so well in Kyle's system? They were one cut up the field hard and run, right? And then we've seen that from Elijah Mitchell as well. And Jeff Wilson at times as well. We see that from Ty Davis-Price. Now, he's not the best at maybe reading the hole, but you see Ty Davis-Price finish runs wherever he's gonna cut and go, he's gonna finish physically. And I'm sure that's the main reason why Kyle picked him up, put a little green check mark next to this kid's name, and drafted him in the 3rd round. Hasty does that to a degree. He's just different from the rest of them because he's smaller, a little more scat back. I'm not the biggest Hasty fan. I think he'll be on the practice squad. He'll probably sneak through. I don't see teams claiming him. But Jordan Mason, I don't know if the Niners can get him on the practice squad to get him this clean through. Now, and Niner fans, I want to preface this in the nicest possible way. We have seen the Corey Sheetses and Glenn Coffees of the world go bananas in the preseason and come and play first team defenses, and they don't quite have the same explosion. I think there is a difference with Jordan Mason just because I really like how he presses the line of scrimmage, right? If you go back and I watched the offensive line play in the second half because one, I wanted to watch Jason Poe, Donovan West, and Nick Sakel and Sutherland kind of move around the offensive front, which we'll get into a little bit later when we get to the offensive line. But I really liked how he pressed the line of scrimmage and just hits it. He sees it and goes. He doesn't hesitate. He doesn't do this step 1-2. And for the record, I don't think Trey Sermon actually had a bad game on Saturday. There was nowhere to go.
They weren't blocking for him.
Yeah, there was nowhere to go. And I want to be very, very clear about that. But it's just the running style. It's very different from everybody else's. And we've really only seen Trey Sermon ever be successful in one half of football. And that's when they had Trey Lance on the field running the read option. So you're not going to be doing that all season because they kind of are just doing that just to kind of, okay, we got a quarterback. Hurry told us 1 minute before kickoff of the second half. All right, Trey, we're going to figure this out. Let's go. And I don't think that Trey Sermon really fits what's going on here. So I would expect maybe you try and trade him because I think there are teams that could value him and you maybe be able to get a day 3 pick or whatever you can get for Trey Sermon. But I think that Trey Sermon, there's a really good chance he's not on this team. I think he needs a very big game on Thursday, and that's going to be really tough coming off a quick turnaround. But I would. And
wasn't he playing on like a bad ankle already?
Yeah, well, that tells you a lot right there, right? The fact that he was out there with an injury when Niners usually shut players down with an injury, right? Doesn't that kind of say something right there?
Yeah,
is that he if you're on the roster, are you playing in that game with here's what if George Kittle is going to play in one of these games, but he's got a slight toe he ain't playing. But Trey Sermon was. That tells you a lot that his roster spot is not locked up. And I'm starting to believe that there's a chance that Trey Sermon is either traded or cut in a week from now.
Let me ask you this, Johnny, because we know Sermon's been working a lot, I think he's been getting some action with the ones. I mean, he's been starting these preseason games.
Yep.
And as we know, Jordan Mason's been working with the 2s and 3s, right? So as a coach, do you need to see what Mason can do with the 1s in order to be like, yeah, you know what? We're keeping Mason over Sermon, or just what he's doing against the 3s makes you feel confident enough in his ability?
That's the best question, because the answer is absolutely yes, right? Because look, again, you could see guys tear up guys who aren't going to be on NFL rosters, right? And when we talk about Jason Poe, we're going to talk about this, right? It's not a knock, but let's be real. Number 50 and number 90 of the Vikings are not making that team, right? Those are third string defensive tackles in a 3-4 scheme and defensive ends. They're usually to keep maybe 6 of those guys. And they have 9 or 10 on the roster right now. Those guys are not going to make the roster. So it is important to see them against guys who are 2s or maybe closer to NFL starting caliber. But yeah, I really believe that maybe he might get a little bit more run earlier in this game. And you've seen that from Kyle. Michael Hasty a few years ago got a lot of run with the 1s early in a preseason game to kind of get him a look a few years ago. I think it was 2020. You saw him kind of pop up out of nowhere and just get some run there just to see what he looks like. And for Jason Poe, when we talk about the offensive line, there's a reason why they're running him with the 1s. They want to see exactly what he's going to look like against not guys who are going to be in the NFL versus guys who aren't.
Lastly, while we're still talking running back, is Jeff Wilson. We got to touch on Jeff Wilson. I am a big Jeff Wilson guy. I have to admit that I was late to the Jordan Mason party. I know a lot of Niners fans were banging the table that, hey, this guy's legit. But I do love me some Jeff Wilson, just how physical he runs. And it sounds like, Shanahan was talking him up. So I like what Jeff Wilson brings to the table. If Eli Mitchell isn't ready week 1, we know he has that hamstring. I feel pretty good about handing off to Jeff Wilson.
I do too. Listen, if we get the Jeff Wilson from 2020 and 2019, we'll be fine. I'm not concerned about the running game, right? We haven't seen him in preseason, right? So it's up to the beat guys. I will say Grant and Jack have both, and those are from the beat guys. Those are the two I really pay attention to, because Grant lets you know when players aren't playing well. And Jack is very objective, like one as far as the guys who go to the beat. And they both have said Jeff Wilson looks like he's gotten his explosion back, right? So that's something that's really big. I mean, obviously Kyle said it today. He was playing basically off heart. Really no time to rehab that injury. When they got him healthy, they kind of just pushed him out there, said, okay, we need you, here you go. And that's kind of how it goes sometimes. But it sounds like Jeff Wilson's gotten his step back for this inside zone running team that hopefully they're going to be, because they lack some speed on the outside at running back. I really hope that Jeff Wilson get it rolling again. But they have other options. It's not just Jeff, right? If Elijah Mitchell can't go, Ty Davis Price will get some run. So and hopefully get some nice finishes on some Chicago defensive players.
Yeah. Besides, the 4th and 1 that we know, Ty Davis Price tried to go lateral. Yeah, he didn't get north and south. Besides that one play, I thought Ty Davis Price looked pretty good.
He's a good running back. Was he overdrafted? Probably. But he's a good running back who finishes runs, and that's something that Kyle Shanahan values. I think they feel like he may not pan out a ton this year, but if they can get him to really get the feel of the Shanahan zone running scheme, and then really teach him how to make that one cut and hit that hole, because he shows that ability, but able to read it and get really into the crease, then he could be a really good running back. And I trust Anthony Lynn, and if Anthony Lynn's gone, and the Niners might get Bobby Turner back. So those are two of the best running back coaches in the NFL. So you really can't – I think they have a good ability to teach these guys and get them coached up. Ty Davis Price right now is probably going to be a little bit of a bowling ball this year. I got no problem with that, as long as it's not Elijah Mitchell or Trey Lance being the bowling ball.
I like that. Why don't we move to the offensive line? We teased it a little bit ago. Jason Poe is getting reps with the ones. How does that make you feel? And what have you seen from Banks? What have you seen from Poe in the preseason? Let me know.
So I'm going to temper some expectations on Jason Poe, but I want to talk about what he does really well. You don't see guards move the way he does that often, right? He's a phenomenal athlete for his size. Like as far as getting his hips around, finishing blocks on the right side in his zone scheme. I know a lot of people don't talk about that. That is very hard. Like that is not something easy to do to get your body around, right? And he's got phenomenal feet to do that. And he uses his hands pretty well too. So I think he's definitely a player. Now, is he a starting left guard this season? I don't know about that. But then again, though, is Aaron Banks a starting guard this year? I think Aaron Banks, he didn't have a good showing against the Vikings. I'll say that. But it wasn't as bad as everyone kind of made it out to be. I know he missed a blitz pickup. I saw him. He got beat on a stun inside. And, people freaked out when offensive linemen make one mistake. It wasn't as bad. It wasn't great, though. I'm not going to say he played well and just made one mistake. Definitely wasn't a good showing. He played better against the Packers and a little bit more limited playing time. I'm curious to see what they're going to do with them on Thursday. It could be a bit of a rotation. That wouldn't surprise me at all. But I think one thing to tell you is, Jason Poe is making this team. Like he is the only backup to Aaron Banks on the depth chart, which I thought was somewhat interesting. So he's definitely going to make this team at one position or another. But we'll see how he does. I'm not gonna bang the drum that Jason Poe should be starting like a lot of people are, because at the end of the day, he's a bit undersized, and in pass protection, you see him get beat a little bit. A lot of these defensive linemen are going to be playing, like Fletcher Cox and Aaron Donald. They're going to be able to swim right over the top of him. They're taller than he is, right? but he's got really good feet to reposition and kind of hold on just long enough. Now we'll see when he plays NFL starters every week. Is that still going to hold up? We saw it happen against some of the guys from the Vikings who, like we talked about, they're not going to make the Vikings. They're not going to be on the team. But we'll see. Well, I think this is going to be a good litmus test against the Texans. I hope he gets some run with the one, so we get kind of a look to see what it looks like.
I like that. Yeah, and I like what I've been seeing from Poe. He's short, right around 6 foot. He's got that leverage though.
Yeah,
but really, where my thoughts keep wandering when we're looking offensive line, it's right tackle.
Yep.
All right, because Justin Skule looks awful. Justin Skule looks terrible. And I wasn't a Justin Skule guy going into these preseason games where Skule's looked bad. So his stock has went from low to lower. I'm sorry, Justin. But, I mean, Jordan Mills also gave up a sack. I'm looking at Daniel Brunskill. If we're going with Brendel at center, and Brunskill can be the backup center if necessary, but I want Brunskill to play right tackle. That's what he was kind of when he first got to the Niners. I want to say they got him from like the AAF league. He
was with the Falcons as a tight end with Kyle, and then he went to AAF to play tackle. And then you're right, that's when he came over to the 49ers. But yeah, that was his kind of trajectory. He was a tight end for a little while.
Yeah. And there's a lot of these NFL tackles were former tight ends, whether it's high school or college.
Very true.
It's a transition you see quite often. But I'm looking at Daniel Brunskill to be the right tackle because Mike McGlinchey, we know there's some injury uncertainty there. Skule's not good. Mills, I mean, we just signed him off the waiver wire a couple weeks ago. And I feel like Brunskill, he could be the backup probably at all 5 offensive lineman positions. So when McGlinchey goes down, but here's the thing though, Johnny, he's dinged up too. I forget what Bruns. We got so many injuries.
He's got a shoulder
tissue.
He's got a shoulder. I think he's got a shoulder that he's been rehabbing from last season. I think something like that. But yeah, Brunskill hasn't been healthy this offseason, and that's part of the reason why I think he's been relegated to the 2s. And then they moved him to center, and it didn't look all that. He couldn't snap the ball. So he looks like Rudy. He does look like Rudy. He's a try hard, man. I love it. Poe's he's got a lot of talent. He's got to rein in a little bit. It's not a finished product yet, and I just want to temper expectations. But I think he can play in the NFL. But getting back to Brunskill, he's been rehabbing an injury, and I don't think that it's really throwing him off. The guy who I want to say play right tackle is a guy I thought they should be playing right tackle this whole time. It's Spencer Burford. He played right tackle at UTSA. So a little bit of background on Burford. He played right guard at a couple years at UTSA. His junior year the third year played right tackle. Senior year played left tackle. So he's a very versatile player, and he has phenomenal feet, very similar to Jason Pope, but he's got a lot more size and length. He was a tackle, and I think can play tackle in the NFL. But I think going into this offseason, the Niners felt that McGlinchey was going to be back. They want to get their best 5 on the field, and they felt like Burford was a player, which was the right assessment. But looking back on it now, you might need a guy who's a legit right tackle. I think Burford can play and would be a good right tackle in this scheme. I don't know what they're thinking. They've literally not put him at tackle at all. They put Jalen Moore there first, and he's been nicked up too. So we don't know what he looks like. He seems like he's got like knee problems, which is, part of the reason why he's a 5th round pick. It's a shame because he looks like an NFL player. It's kind of a bummer, but there's a serious concern at right tackle. And I know some Niner fans are saying, go get the guy Isaiah Wynn from the Patriots. I'm not about that because here's the problem. The problem with trading for Isaiah Wynn, you have to give up probably a 2nd or a 3rd round pick to get him. And then next year, you're probably going to have to give him a big contract because he gave a lot for him. He's also 6'2", like 311. Like
Jason Poe is Isaiah Wynn.
Yeah, they're virtually the same player. So like I know Isaiah Wynn, he's also struggled quite a bit in New England. I know
been injured.
He's been injured.
He was injured his first couple of years. I know that.
Yeah. So in last year, I know he had some struggles in pass protection too. So he's not exactly the upgrade that I think a lot of people think he is. I think Isaiah Wynn's probably a guard in the end. Could be a really good guard. But I'm not really into that. I think the Niners probably should do is move Poe or have Poe or Brunskill be on that right guard, move Buford to right tackle, and then Banks, and then whoever else. Yeah, Andre Dillard's been the problem with Andre Dillard. He's only ever played left tackle. It's a good question. I've never heard him playing on the other side, and the last thing you want to do is trade for a guy who's never played that position and then stick him over there and start him and say good luck. That's usually a recipe for disaster. You're better off going with, unfortunately, Colton McKivitz. I know that sounds completely backward, but
or Brunskill
or Buford. But yeah, I think the Niners. We knew this going in. If the Niners had one or two injuries to the offensive line, it was going to be an issue because they've drafted and developed a couple guys, which are really nice. But overall, they had some holes coming into this season, and if you don't patch all the holes on the offensive line, it could be a problem.
Let's get to CG's question. What's up, CG?
What's up, man?
Should we move Poe to center? Answer question.
It's a good question. I think they like him at guard because they like here's the thing. His length might be a problem at center. Because if you go back to the first couple plays of the Minnesota game, there's one play, the first passing play with Sudfeld or Purdy in the third quarter. You kind of saw where his lane kind of got him into trouble. He got rerouted and he fell straight back on his back feet, and then his hands kind of went all crazy. So in context, that might seem something to you, but when you're a center and you're like someone who loses balance and pass protection, what's usually the first thing that happens because you have a nose guard on you? You get run the F over, right? At guard, you have some time to kind of reposition and get your feet back under you and plant, right? But at center, someone's on you right away. So maybe not this year. I still have hope for Donovan West getting on the practice squad and getting his strength up. I'm watching the Vikings game. I like what Donovan West is a smart player. He's not ready to play in the NFL, though. He needs a year on the practice squad. Whatever wrist injury he had, he obviously couldn't lift because he's super weak. If they can get some strength in him, he's a legit starting center in this league. I felt like that. His tape was really good at Arizona State. But he looks really weak, and that's the reason why he fell in the draft the way he did. But a lot of people and I was one of them who thought he was a mid-round pick. We're kind of shocked he fell all the way out of there. But yeah, I'm not sure about Poe at center. I like him a little better at guard. It's just because I feel like he might be a little bit more off balanced, and at guard he has, having two hands to start is going to make balancing a lot easier versus just the one. And I don't know if he's ever played center. Center's not a position you can just go play. It's you got to have played it a few times to kind of know a little bit of the intricacy.
Yeah, I'm saying keep Poe at guard. I know it's good to have versatile offensive linemen, but sometimes with these rookies, you got to just put them in one or two spots, whether it's left guard, right guard. Hey, perfect this craft because, Aaron Banks, there is some uncertainty there. There's a bit of a question mark. We haven't seen him as a full year as a starter. So I like that we're having Poe kind of prepped in case, hey, if Banks isn't looking good, we got someone ready to roll.
Yeah, and again, I think the one thing with Aaron Banks that I think we need to talk about is his run blocking is not bad. All right, it's not bad. His pass protection, it's not great. He gets off balance. He gets his weight going forward. You see it, right? And I think that's a constant Kyle Shanahan problem, right? You have good run blockers and not the best pass blockers, right? Literally, Tom Compton had a great season because they ran the ball so well. Pass protection wasn't great, but his run blocking was good. So I think they can get away with Aaron Banks this season just because they're going to run the ball a ton. In particular, they're going to be running the ball at him and Trent Williams and Kyle Juszczyk and George Kittle and let his size do the work. So I don't know if Jason Poe's going to win the job, but there's a possibility where Jason Poe is starting week one. But I also think that Spencer Burford should be playing right tackle, not right guard. But that's just me.
Hey, Johnny, you remember Toby Gerhart?
I do remember Toby Gerhart. That dude was sick
I got
at Stanford.
Toby. Yeah, I'm about to play a clip of Toby Gerhart throwing a football. And then in that time, everyone was watching. Better like and subscribe. All right. That's what Toby Gerhart looks at quarterback. All right. So like this video right now. Let's get to the next topic, Johnny. the Jimmie Ward injury. You were telling me, backstage a little bit. There's some concern there. We can lump that in with the Taishan Gibson signing. What are your thoughts on these two items?
So let's just start with the Taishan Gibson starting, because what does that tell you, right? Taishan Gibson, he's 32 years old, but he's been a Pro Bowler in this league. He's been on a couple very good defenses. I mean, his best year was 2017, the year that he was part of that Jacksonville secondary. He's a part of Saxonville. Had a really good season that year, right? Been a starter for the Bears and has been a starter for a good portion of his career. But the thing with Taishan Gibson that tells me is that I don't think the 49ers are very comfortable with Tavarius Moore, Greg Odom, and Talanoa Hufanga without Jimmie Ward being around for a while. And I think the only reason why you sign Taishan Gibson is because Jimmie Ward is going to be out a few weeks going into the season. Kyle, he was asked right away, does Jimmie Ward have a chance of missing week one? He goes, yes, Jimmie Ward has a big chance of missing week one. It was a very matter-of-fact, true answer. So I would not shock me at all if you don't see Jimmie Ward play until the fourth game of the year. Wow. It's again, he's 32 years old. He's coming on. It's a hamstring injury. Let's be honest, right?
Hamstrings are no joke. Hamstrings are no joke.
And you pull them again, you're done for the year, right? So that's the thing with hamstrings. You got to let them heal right. And so because of where they're at in the season, it's kind of in that awkward time. It would have been better if he pulled it, early August, but because it was in the middle of August, this is kind of what you're looking at. It's still a month, maybe 2 month recovery to really get it back to 100. And I mean, realistically, about 4 to 5 weeks from the injury was going to be week 1. 6 weeks is week 2. 7 weeks is week 3. And if you're going to run him out there 7 weeks, if he's not 100% healthy, he goes to Denver and he pulls his hamstring again, he's down another month to a month and a half. So I think the 49ers might be a little bit more cautious of Jimmie Ward than be expected.
It's got me shook, Johnny. This Jimmie Ward being out till week 4, it's got me shook right now.
Well, yeah, I mean, but signing Taishan Gibson kind of tells you what you need to know, right? I mean, the Niners, don't ever listen to them talk. Just watch what they do, because they'll let you know how they really feel about people. They'll make a blunt veteran signing out of nowhere to tell you that, okay, we don't like our depth here. I mean, Tavarius Ward to me was on the bubble regardless. I still think Tavarius Ward might get cut even when Jimmie Ward comes back and they keep Taishan Gibson just because.
Tavarius Moore?
Yeah, Tavarius Moore. I'm sorry. I keep getting flipped.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, unless Tavarius Moore is a really good special teamer and that saves him. But I don't know.
I'm not a Moore guy. I'm not a Moore guy.
I'm not either. It seemed like he played a little bit better, but he's still getting beat on coverage, man. And if you're a safety you can't cover, then I don't know how you keep a roster spot. Yeah. I mean, that's true.
If they really thought, he was in jeopardy of missing, 3 or 4 games, then yes. But really, with a player like Jimmie Ward, even if he has a chance at coming back week 2 or week 3, you don't do it because he's that good of a player. You don't say, okay, he's out week 1 and let's just put him on PUP. No, if he has any chance of playing week 3, week 4, you do not put him on PUP.
Well, the Niners have changed their injury, recovery, right? Kyle was a lot more old school back when he first came here, right? They have gone way more conservative. And it's shown to be the right move, right? They're starting to get their starters out on the field all the time. They're having injuries throughout the roster, but a lot of their starters, for the most part, are pretty solid. Now, we can talk about Tavarius Ward. We'll see what happens there. Sounds like things are trending the right way, but I don't know. That could be another sign of concern. But yeah, I think Gibson signing him means he's going to make the team. He's a good player. Yeah, he didn't play all that bad last year. The Bears just sucked. And when your team sucks and you're playing safety for that team, everything looks worse. But Gibson can play. He
had some really good years with the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, he did. And then in that year with Jacksonville too, he had a phenomenal season. He made the Pro Bowl that year. They were the best defense in football. But somehow Jimmy Garoppolo beat them. I still don't understand that one.
Let's see. While we're on the secondary, I got to shout out my boy Demo, because this is a Diamador Lenore Stan account. I like Demo. I thought, hey, why isn't he getting shots in the nickel? Well, now he is getting some work in the nickel. We know that's going to be Womack's job, the way he looked. But in fact, Womack, I think what they're thinking, Johnny, they've seen Womack locking up, right? I mean, we all saw it in the Packers' first preseason game. But they're like, well, okay, what do we really have in this kid? Let's start lining him up outside. I mean, is he this lockdown corner that can play outside too? So with the Charvarius Ward injury, it's kind of opening up a door to be, okay, Womack, we like you. You're looking good in the slot. What else can you do?
Yeah, in the slots, it depends on who you're playing, but the slot might be the hardest position on defense, just because you're on an interior island and sometimes you don't get help, but also you gotta like be in the run fits and like an important part of the run fits too, because you get beat around the edge, it's usually a touchdown. So Womack, I mean, he's been a giant surprise. I mean, a lot of people did the what when they drafted him, because I mean, I remember like they're like, who the hell was this guy? And the Niners have done that in the past, and it's been head scratching and hasn't really worked out. This time it seems it's worked out. Womack is showed like he's a player. So, I mean, them putting Womack in at corner is a little bit scary for Charvarius Ward, right? I don't know if he's going to be ready for week 1. It's a little bit more up in the air than it seemed like it was trending well. And then now that you're kind of rotating around. But Lenore he's definitely the first corner off the bench right now. If someone can't go, Diamador Lenore is going to be the guy playing, regardless of the position. It could be slot or outside. They also like Quantrez Knight from what I've been looking at. You know, he's got an outside shot to make the team. I don't know if he will. I think
he's a practice squad guy, but I'm hearing the same thing you're hearing, that they like this kid Knight.
I think the one thing I heard was that they think he can play safety too. And I think that might be where he ends up being a player for this team in the future, is at safety, not necessarily at corner. Just because they have Tariq Castro-Fields, they have Womack, they might want to and also they have a ton of guys coming up on.
I didn't think Castro-Fields looked very good. Sorry to interrupt you, Johnny. I didn't think he looked very good versus the Vikings.
He looks like a Kello Witherspoon, but weaker. You know, his first year, and it was just like, it looked like that a little bit. He needs to be on a practice squad. He needs to put on about 15 pounds of muscle in his upper body and get back to the physical style of play that he had at Penn State. He could be a guy who also has to play in safety too, because he is aggressive, but he's just weak right now. You've seen that from a lot of, I think, the 49ers UDFAs that will be on the practice squad. Donovan West, Tariq Castro-Fields, even Knight. They're a little bit on the weaker side, right? But you're on the practice squad. These guys look like players. They compete, man. I like what the 49ers did with their undrafted rookie class, man. And Tay Martin's another guy. He competes too. I think he's going to be a practice squad guy. I really hope he gets snuck on there. And he could be a guy who's in the conversation like Jawan Jennings a year from now.
No doubt. No doubt. And I want to get into the next topic, Johnny. If I can click it. If I can click my video that's going to pop up.
Burning questions.
We got some burning questions, Johnny. The Lance practice report concern level. I got to add a question mark. So this is actually a legitimate question, but we know the practice reports that's came out the last couple days, Johnny, have not been good. All right. He threw 3 picks yesterday. A 4th one was dropped. Today he threw 1 pick. I think another one was dropped. So it's like, we're throwing picks in practice. I know he looked damn good against the Packers. Got me excited. But Johnny, what's your concern level?
Have you seen the movie Step Brothers? You know when they're making bunk beds and Brennan's father goes, "I don't give that's where I'm at." Yeah, I don't want to swear because but yeah, I don't get. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, guys. It's not real football. It's practice. All right. This is the problem with Grant and the spreadsheet sharing all this crap. All right, because it's fucking practice. It's practice, guys. They're working on things. You don't know what they're working on. Okay. A lot of these guys haven't never played football. So there's a reason why coaches do the things they do at practice. They're testing him. They want to put him in stressful situations. So they're going to see how Trey can force the ball in there. So when they get to a game, they have a good idea of how he's going to react. I mean, yeah, he threw a pick. He threw a double covered pick today because he forced the ball into George Kittle. Okay, well, you know what? How often do great players, quarterbacks, force balls to their great players? Often. He was probably testing to see, all right, if I throw this ball to Kittle, what happens? Because it's practice. It's freaking practice, guys. What are we doing here?
Allen Iverson's watching this, nodding his head in
Oh my
agreement right
God.
now. Yeah.
It's
Yes.
unbelievable. Practice is where you work on things, you hone your craft. It is not a game. It is not what really the product is. You're not game planning out there. A lot of coaches, like especially Kyle Shanahan, he uses practice to test people, to put them in stressful situations to see how they're going to react. So in the third quarter where people are tired, Kyle knows exactly what you're going to do. And they can dial up something to help you succeed, but to beat somebody else based on what the defense is doing. This is the topic I wanted to get into before, not even talking about what happened today at practice. I don't pay attention. I do a quick glance to see what everyone's talking about. I think it's the dumbest thing in the world, but it's obviously better if Trey looks good. But I mean, how many times did I don't know, JT O'Sullivan look good in Niners training camp, and then he sucked, and then Sean Hill or Tim Rattay.
Hey, Brian Hoyer was shredding in training camp.
Yeah, I mean, just make whatever narrative you want to make out of it. You want to go be Colin Cowherd and Florio, go be my guest. I don't care because you have nothing to talk about because you just like everyone, we're waiting for real football to start. Thank you, Eric. Thank you. Yeah, you can go 4-0 in the preseason and go 0-16. And then guess what? No one remembers the 4 wins you got in August. It don't matter. It's a joke. It's an absolute joke. I understand why they did it last year, right? That because they wanted to show the quarterback competition. They wanted to get clicks, and God bless them. I clicked along with everybody because we all wanted to know how it looked because we all thought Jimmy sucked, and we all thought Trey could probably beat him out if it was a true quarterback competition. But the truth was it never was a quarterback competition. Trey was redshirting. He was only going to play if Jimmy got hurt or if the season was over. That was the reality of the situation that was not really reported on, except I'll give Lombardi credit because him and Jack were the only two people who actually got that part right. It was never truly a competition. But you don't need to be doing this other than just to get clicks. There's no actual mental exercise because at the end of the day,
I think they're trying to give context on what is going on, but even you can be as descriptive as possible. They're not telling you, hey, they're in a cover 1 buzz with Hufanga in
you can't see
they're
it.
playing. They're only rushing 3. Like there's stuff that is not being said.
There's a lot of nuanced stuff. You don't know what coverages he's attacking, why he threw the ball there in the first place. That's why you watch tape, because you go back and watch the tape. That's what first thing Kyle says. Trey threw 3 picks today. How did he look? Well, let's go back and watch the tape, right? Let's see what he was looking at. We'll watch his head, and we'll go from there, right? You don't even know if someone really had a good or bad practice until you watch tape. I mean, I thought I had one of the best when I was playing. I thought I had one of the best players when I was a sophomore on varsity. One of the best days in the world of practice. I was mucking people up. I felt like I got a good day. We watched the film, and I missed blowing assignments left and right, but I was playing fast and hitting people. So what happened? My coach chewed me out. That is how it goes because the truth is you can look like an all-star in practice, but then you suck in the games because guess what? You're not doing your assignment. And I guarantee the one thing that Trey's probably doing that they're really pressing is they're really pressing the intermediate passing game. Because I think that's the one thing he struggles with the most is getting the ball through the numbers on target, right? So they're going to be dialing up to practice that so Trey can get a better feel for the timing and finishing throws. It sounds like, though, for the most part, Trey's playing pretty good football. Is he forcing the ball a little bit? Yeah, he's forcing the ball because he's working on things. He needs a test exactly against a good defense. How far he can throw the ball. Where can he put the ball? Where does it work? Where does it doesn't? That's the best thing in the world for him. I don't understand these narratives coming out of camps unless it's the dumbest thing ever because the truth is you don't know until week 1. You really don't know. I mean, do anyone remember how Patrick Mahomes did at his first camp or Jared Allen, Josh Allen? I can't even say his name. I'm pissed off. And I remember Deshaun Watson. Oh, here's one. Deshaun Watson's first year at camp. Everyone talked about how bad he was. Hard Knocks talked about that. And they Trevor Siemian, or not Trevor Siemian. Who was it? Who was a quarterback that started in front of him? No, it wasn't Osweiler. It was another scrub. It was some other guy. They put because I remember it was a big, tall, white kid. He couldn't move and he just threw ducks. And DeAndre Hopkins was talking about how he was the better quarterback and really delivered the ball well in practice. And then they were 1-6. And then Deshaun Watson was in. They started winning games and he tore his ACL. Like it doesn't mean anything. Like you can make whatever narrative to fit whatever bubble you want to put in. Either you think that Trey sucks or Trey is going to be an all-star. But the truth is there's no critic answering. He hasn't answered anything yet because he hasn't played a full season as a starting quarterback yet.
The one that I don't get, Johnny, is when they're talking completion percentage, right? Because if you want to talk completion percentage, right? Trey Lance is throwing so many balls deep down the field. Like, what's that going to do to your completion percentage? Jimmie would never even attempt these throws that are 20, 30, 40 yards down the field.
And that's the other part of this too, is that he's trying to develop timing with Debo and with George. And we all know Ayuk was with them in the offseason. We all know that. But the bottom line is his offense in the passing game runs through Debo and Kittle first. Bottom line. I think we're starting to see that too. When we've heard that at some of the practice camps and stuff. Ayuk seemed a little frustrated at Vikings camp because they only had a couple targets. But Kittle and Debo had a whole lot, didn't they? So I think that's sort of the thing that Trey still needs to develop timing with these guys. It sounds like him and Kittle got it pretty figured out. Him and Debo don't quite have it figured out yet. Well, guess what? You got 3 weeks before the first game. And it's something that's going to be evolving as the season goes, too. Because the one great thing about Debo is that you don't have to throw him the ball to keep him involved in the game. You can just throw him a couple of pitch passes and watch him go rack up a touchdown or two or a 30-yard run. So it's an evolving thing. It's a long season. And a lot of this stuff just drives me absolutely up a wall because it doesn't matter until they actually play football games, until Trey actually plays 2 games against a real NFL defense, which we'll see after Seattle. And then we can start to see, okay, is he struggling? Is he doing this? The one things I will say you can take out of this, some of the reports, is that Trey's a little inaccurate and misses high. We've seen that in games. Okay, we've seen him be a little bit of a slow starter, which I think is maybe the bigger thing to take out of it is that I think Trey's a bit of a slow starter in games. And we've seen that in the Cardinals game. We saw it to start the Seahawks game. It looked like a disaster, but then again, kind of coming off the bench right out of the halftime is ridiculous. But that's on Jimmie for just saying I'm out. So good on him. But it's just I got really pissed off with this whole practice thing. But anyway, thanks, platform.
Hey, I love it. I love it, man. This is 49ers fired up.
I've had enough. I've had enough of this crap. It doesn't matter. Let's see him play real games. It doesn't matter. To me, it's a joke. But until we see him play quarterback against NFL defenses, you're not going to make a real assessment on him. And the one thing about Trey that I will say is that we've seen him get better. Even in the Packers game in a limited stint, he threw the ball pretty well. And the ball he missed, I mean, you want to maybe the timing was a bit off between him and Danny Gray. The one he threw the sideline that people were saying, oh, he sucks because he missed a deep out route and he threw it with a little bit of anticipation and maybe let him a little too far. But people were saying Danny Gray should have got his feet in. But they're working on stuff. It's a rookie receiver and basically a rookie quarterback. Everyone's just taking everything. Like, you have to be the greatest player on every single play when we know that Tom Brady is not the greatest player on every single play in football. All right. Go ask the New Orleans Saints if they think Tom Brady's good. They've literally kicked his ass for 2 years straight. Tom beat him one time. It just happened to be in the playoffs because Drew Brees' arm was falling off. But they're 4-0 against them in the regular season. All right. Yeah. Go back and look. The Saints have been kicking the Bucs' ass since Tom Brady's been there. Oh, yeah. So that's my point, is that you got to let Trey play quarterback in the National Football League, not in training camp, okay? It doesn't matter. Jimmie's had terrible camps, mostly terrible camps. He's looked good at times, and he's been a slightly above average to bad quarterback at times, and somewhere in that mix. Let Trey figure it out. He's 22 years old. He's going to be inconsistent. It's not going to be all perfect to start the season, all right? He's going to miss some throws. He's going to throw some picks. It's going to happen. He's not going to be no turnovers like his year at North Dakota State. That's not going to happen, guys, all right? You got to have some realistic expectations for what you're going to see. Could he throw 30 touchdown passes? Yeah, because the NFL is pass happy, and he's got Debo and Kittle and Ayuk. That doesn't mean he's the best quarterback in the league, though, either, right? Just because he's got studs around him, it's going to make his life easier. But just have some realistic expectations for this kid, because it's so all over the place. It's crazy to me. Just let's see what the kid has first before you make a decision on what he's going to be.
Well, let me tell you, and I agree with everything you said, but let me tell you what's going to happen. I mean, we got this preseason game on Thursday. That thing's going to get overanalyzed. There's going to be every throw is going to be put under the microscope, Johnny. I mean, that's where it's at.
You're going to have JT O'Sullivan, picking apart his left turn footwork and his fake drop step and all that other crap. It's like, you know what, dude? It's like, how does he feel comfortable throwing the ball? He's 22 years old. Let's just get him comfortable first so we can make the decisions to get the ball where it needs to go. Because that's one thing about Trey Lance that I feel like none of you no people actually talk about is that he is an elite processor who gets the ball out on time. He does do that. Even when he wasn't playing well against Arizona and even in Houston to kind of start the game, you saw Trey go to the right place with the football, even when he wasn't comfortable. And that's something that's the rare part of a 21-year-old, 22-year-old. That's something that Trevor Lawrence struggled with heavily. And Trevor Lawrence was a 3-year starter at Clemson. And the ACC won a national championship. But you saw him struggle with that. Now, Trevor Lawrence has other issues that weren't his fault in Jacksonville. I want to preface that. And in your fantasy leagues, I would take a hard look at Trevor Lawrence late in drafts because I really liked his preseason tape. But anyway,
It's Christian Kirk. I just had my first draft on Friday, and I got great value on Christian Kirk. He just got paid. I think Lawrence is going to have a good season, and Kirk's the number one option.
I actually think Zay Jones is going to be the number one option.
Oh, okay.
Zay Jones is. People are like sleeping on Zay.
Scorching hot takes.
Yeah, that's scorching hot right there. Zay Jones, number one.
Do people remember what Zay Jones did for the Raiders down the stretch? Zay Jones was one of the reasons why they went to the playoffs last year. Like, that dude was like a college. He was sensational in college, breaking records. Yeah, he was awesome. And in the playoff game, too, he had 2 touchdowns against the Bengals. Like, he was their offense. Like, he was playing really good football. That was a really sneaky signing by Trent Baalke. The other one pissed me off because it broke the receiver market. Thanks a lot, Baalke. But Zay Jones' pickup was actually a sneaky one, and he's going to be the other outside receiver on that team.
I agree with you there. I do like me some Zay Jones, although I'm thinking Christian Kirk is probably going to have, 85 to 90 catches, 1,200 yards.
He's going to be a PPR monster.
Yeah, I'm expecting a really big year from Christian Kirk.
Mm-hmm.
But let's see. What do I got for everyone? Hey, make sure you do this. If you don't want to listen to me about liking and subscribing, listen to my boy Shardal.
Make sure you like and subscribe.
Shardal's the man.
There it is.
Yeah. And I was reading some of the comments, Eric, or who's it, Robert, or was it someone of you guys? I think it's Platform saying, no, I think Trey is going to be really good. I just don't think it's going to be this year. I think he's got a lot of I'm with that. I'm with that narrative. I think Trey's going to be really good, but I just don't think it's going to happen right now. It's going to take time.
Is he going to be a tick better than Jimmy Garoppolo? Because that's where I'm at. If he can be just a tick better than Jimmy this year, I think we're Super Bowl contenders. This is what I was saying last week on the title of the show was Super Bowl contenders.
Yeah, and I think that's fair, right? Because they're going to play ball control with this really good defense and then set up the play action to get Trey easy looks. And if he misses a pass on one of those crossing routes to Kittle, it's going to the sideline. No one's going to be there. It's not going to get picked off. So that's the thing with Trey Lance. His running ability alone is going to, how many times did we see Jimmy Garoppolo on 2nd and 10, drop back for a short pass, not throw the ball and take a sack, make it 3rd and 15. Then they do that stupid bring Kittle in with a running back, block 2 guys, run a play, 2 yards short of the first down marker. The pass gets completed and they punt. How many times have we seen that happen from a Kyle Shanahan offense? The answer is too many. Trey's going to be able to be that guy who gets 5 yards on that play, not take the sack, throw the ball away, keep it more third and manageable to put him in better situations throughout the game. Now, if he's not doing that, he's going to struggle a lot more than people realize. Because, listen, if Trey's in 3rd and 10s all game long, he'll make some plays, but he'll make some mistakes.
That's not ideal.
That's not ideal, especially for a guy who hasn't thrown the ball a lot. So it's about having the right expectations for his skill set, but his skill set's phenomenal. I think Steve Young was spot on with what he said. He's going to process the hell out of the play. He knows where to go with the football. It's just getting it there and putting it in the right spot. He's going to struggle with that. And sometimes he's going to put the ball right on the money. Sometimes he's not. He's got slight accuracy issues, all right? It's not anything to write home about because it's not like he's missing people by a mile. He's missing people by a couple feet here or there, all right? He can rein that in. So that's why I'm not as concerned as the crazy people, but I'm also a little more concerned that people say he's going to win the MVP. It's like, all right, the MVP is a narrative award. I don't have a channel. I help Baller because Baller is the man. All right, that's a fact.
Johnny's certified on my channel.
Yeah, I'm certified, baby. No, it's just I feel like If the biggest thing is he better than can he be better than Jimmie? And the answer is yes, because there's so many things he could do that Jimmie just can't do. Just even the little 3-yard runs where he escapes a sack. You're not going to think about it. It's not going to be on the highlights. It's not going to be on SportsCenter, all right, for all the flashy fantasy football people. But it's going to keep them on schedule more. And that was the one thing about this offense. People say Jimmie was good on third down. Well, why was he on third down and long so much? It's because they were off schedule so often, because they couldn't get the running game going, because Jimmie can't run a play action boot. When Jimmie turns his head to a defense, he throws a pick to Bobby Wagner standing right in front of him. It's those little things. Hey,
Johnny, I'm implementing a new rule, and actually Locker Room Rant was the first one I seen do it. Shout out to the YouTube channel Locker Room Rant there. We don't say Jimmie's name no more.
Fair enough.
All right?
Fair enough.
He's number 10. You can get away with number 10. I'm done with Jimmie. But I want to, before we wrap this show up, shout out to everyone watching. But I had a scorching hot take last week that I want to run by you.
Burning question. Scorching hot takes.
This triple option the 49ers have been practicing, Johnny, I think this could be a potential lethal wrinkle in the Kyle Shanahan offense. I don't know if you've seen the videos that have came out. Grant posted them, but Lance is in the pistol. He's got, whether it's Mitchell or Sermon, he's got someone next to him, and then Debo or Ray McLeod behind him. And they can hand it off. They can run the option, or you just fake it, Johnny, and you throw a 50-yard bomb to Danny Gray going right down the seam. I think this could be a lethal wrinkle, kind of similar to how the Miami Dolphins brought in the Wildcat back in 2008, kind of took the league by storm. What are you thinking about it?
I think it's not going to be run as much as people think, right? I think the one thing that Kyle Shanahan learned from Trey Lance is that I don't want him running forward. I want him running lateral behind the line of scrimmage. Now, what do I mean by that, right? Trey's game is a lot better when he's running around in the pocket. He's phenomenal at moving in the pocket. He's really good at avoiding sacks. That's something that's a very rare talent to have. Trey is really good about dipping the shoulder, kind of getting around someone, and then getting his eyes back down the field, right? That's something that I really like about his game. And the one thing I will say about, the motion, it's definitely the motions is part of the offense, right? But Kyle's going to cook up all sorts of crazy stuff to keep people off balance, right? Having Debo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Ray McLeod, and Danny Gray on the field at one time, it just offers so many problems, right? Because you have the burner, you have two possible gadget guys, and you have two really good receivers with great hands. And you could also break a run for a long game. Ayuk and Kittle are more than capable of that, right? So here's what I will say about the triple option, and then what makes it so hard to play against. It's because it forces you. It's in the run game where you have to cover all your gaps on all sides of the field, right? Because it's a little bit of inside zone and it's a little bit of option football on the backside. If you whether you give the dive or not, and then when you run a pitch play, right? But Debo can just keep trailing, and they can run a bubble screen on the backside from that. They can kind of line up in that kind of pistol king, right, or whatever. The running back slightly to the right of Trey. And then have Debo rip around and then throw a bubble screen to the outside.
There's some trickery. You can get really innovative doing some stuff like that.
It's classic Kyle, man. Kyle uses motion to create matchups that he wants. And having Kittle and Ayuk and Debo and Ray, Juwan Jennings, who I think, I know Juwan's got a drop problem, but he's going to make this team because one thing Juwan can do better than a lot of receivers is he's a hell of a blocker on the outside. He's a hell of a blocker. So he's going to be on this team and have a role. And then you supplement him and Danny Gray sometimes. And literally with all their eyes are in the backfield watching Debo and Trey, you have a guy with legit 4.3 speed coming right behind them. And if they cover them, it's going to open up the middle of the field for Kittle and Ayuk. So, I think it's a lot to say about nothing because you can't run a triple option offense in the modern NFL because Trey will not make it past week 3. You know what I mean? It's not going to look like Georgia Tech. It's just a wrinkle on a wrinkle on a wrinkle. That's how Kyle operates, right? He does one thing to set up one other thing to do and the next thing and the next thing, right? It's always about just getting you in the right set to attack a defense. Because the one thing I think the one thing about why people forget why Kyle's so successful is that Kyle got a master class on how to attack defenses, right? When he was first job at Tampa, it was Monty Kiffin, it was Mike Tomlin, and then there's someone else. Gruden, but I'm talking about. Remember, Kyle started as a defensive quality control guy.
Okay.
So he started as to learn how to attack defenses, right? It was Monty Kiffin, who is the master of the 4-3 storm zone defense, right? The cover 2. Mike Tomlin, the Tampa 2. Mike Tomlin, who, no matter what you want to say about Mike Tomlin, I know he's not the perfect coach, but he's a damn good coach because Pittsburgh's always competitive every single year when they're lacking massive talent at times. And there was one other guy that I'm just blanking on who was Lovie Smith. Lovie Smith was there too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that was the other guy too. Another phenomenal defensive coach who's now a head coach again. Good for Lovey. He got, for a lot's been said about Lovey, but he got to an NFC Championship game with Jay Cutler. So keep that in mind.
Is that a shot at my boy Jay Cutler? You throwing shots at my boy? I love me some Jay Cutler, Johnny.
Do you really?
You know what? It's just that gunslinger mentality, baby. I love those dudes with a cannon who are just willing just to sling it in the tightest. Brett Favre, not saying Cutler's Brett Favre, but it's that gunslinger mentality. And Jimmy Garoppolo had that gunslinger mentality on 5-yard slant routes. What you know about that?
Yeah. And direct throws to Bobby Wagner and Traquan Diggs. Don't forget those ones too.
Oh yeah. How could I? Hey, Johnny. This has been a blast. Thanks for coming on. It's not going to be the last time I get Johnny on 49ers Fired Up. Any last thing you want to say? You want to shout out? Follow this guy on Twitter. Now's your time, Johnny.
Go Niners. I got nothing to plug. I just come to talk to Baller because he's the freaking man. That's all I do. I like to give insight because I think there's sometimes people will get caught up in a lot of other noise and just get to real football. All right. Let's not talk about some of the other crap that's going on. Talk about the real stuff. That's my point.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. We're about to wrap it up. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you're subscribed. Johnny, as soon as the game is over, whether it's the preseason, regular season, I'm cutting up Trey Lance highlights, right? I don't know if you saw, I posted every throw that he did against the Packers. That one was pretty quick to do, but I was doing it last year too. If you want to go back and watch how Lance did versus the Cardinals every throw, or how Lance did versus the Texans, that's on my channel. There's more of that to come.
You do some good cut-ups, man. It's nice. It's good stuff. And yeah, that's that stuff's good because you get a quick look at Trey. But to overanalyze it and everyone dig in, and like the one guy on Twitter who covers the Niners who freaks out and says Brock Purdy is going to force a quarterback competition. That's just insanity. That was the one that pissed me off. I was reading that on Twitter and I was like, dude, you got to stop. Like that's insane. If you know who I'm talking about, you know who I'm talking about. I'm not going to give his name any credit, but Jesus, what are we talking about here? Aye.
Hey, I love it. We got hyped up. We got fired up. Thanks for dropping in. Catch y'all next time.